Okay, this video is going to be showing you some of the agates, nodules, and geodes that have been found on the Carver agate field in West Texas, a place called Alpine, Texas. What you see here in front of you are some of the nodules that I found yesterday, about 15 pounds worth. And I'm going to be showing you those nodules both before they are cut, and I'm going to then show you how they're cut, and I'm going to show you how they're polished. In addition, I'm going to show you today some of the polished ones so you can see what the end result will be. Okay, if we can now take a look at these a little bit closer. This is the shape of them. They have a rounded top. They have a flattish bottom. They form in gas bubbles like that, with the bubble on the upside, a flattened bottom. This is one that has a very thin rind that was broken open by a piece of equipment. It contains crystals inside of it. You can see the shape of them and also the white material in which they form, which is an ashy white material. While they look green on the outside, when you get inside, they're never green. They're either smoky quartz, amethyst, or rather colorless. This is one that I found yesterday that was broken open by equipment. You can see the green exterior and the crystalline center. These are examples of ones that I have found that have been cut and polished. This is an amethyst geode. You can see the amethyst crystals, and it also has attached to it an interesting little banded blue agate. You can see the flat side, the bottom of the bubble, the almond-shaped top, which was the top of the bubble, and this is one that attached or grew together with this one. The yellow material is what they were found in, which is an ashy material. Here's another one, classic flat bottom, rounded top, and it has very fine banded agate, and it has a crystalline center, fairly large geode. Here's one that has smoky quartz crystals, a thin rind. It has little calcite crystals that grow in through the smoky quartz. Then the white material is something that crystallized on the smoky quartz crystals. So you have three kinds of crystals here. Again, you see the flat bottom, the rounded top of the bubble. Then we have a lot of blue banded agate. This is a good example of that. It's actually a geode with a pretty little crystalline center, and you can see the bands are quite perfect. At this point, we're going to go forward now and take a look at trying to cut one, and in particular, we'll try to cut this one so you can get a good look at it. First, we'll clean off this material, and then I'll show you what it looks like without this white ashy stuff that's on it. I just showed you this stone. I said I was going to wash it up, and I have done that. You can see the greenish color on the exterior, but in fact it's going to be blue or gray or some color inside. These little round things are called sagenites. They're iron formations that grow into the stone. You can see them on the back. When you cut through a sagenite, you often get, there they are on the outside, and that's what they look like when you cut them. They sort of look like a starburst when they grow into a stone. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go clamp this into the saw, and when I do that, I'm going to be trying to get a cut that will go through this large node. Typically, that's where you're going to find your crystals in your bigger ones. Clamping it into the saw, as you're going to see in a minute, is tricky, and if you don't get it clamped in tightly, the stone can come loose and it can ruin the saw blade. Saw blades, like you're going to see in a moment, are in excess of $220, so it's very important to not have the stone come loose. So now we're going to go over to the saw and see what we... Okay, here's the rock that we're going to try to cut, and this is the saw that is going to be cutting it. It's a 20-inch saw, and this is the clamp. We're going to clamp it in here between these pieces of wood. This is not easy to do. you have to work with the stone to get it to actually fit tightly. And you want to be able to have it cut where you want it to cut. You turn down on these nuts, and then you take your wrench and you start tightening. Now, if it isn't in right, it'll pop out when you apply pressure to it here, and hopefully that won't happen. So I'm going to tighten the other nut. As I said before, you can ruin a saw blade if it pops out, so you want to make sure that it's very tight. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to adjust this out. There's a handle that you turn that allows this carriage to come closer to the saw blade. You can see the stone coming out. I want to cut it through here. So that's as far as I can bring it out. I'm going to back off about 5 or 6 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's so if I wanted to cut it again and cut a slab, I would be able to. I'm saving myself 5 turns. What's going to happen is this carriage is on a mechanism that will drive the stone into this blade with an electric motor and a worm gear. And as this wheel turns, it's in oil. Down in the bottom, it's full of oil. The oil will come up, lubricate the stone, and then the stone will be driven into the blade. And when we take it out, it will be cut in half. So here we go. The saw is not quite engaged yet. You'll hear it begin to make contact in a moment. This little window allows you to look in, see the blade turning, and you can see the stone inside. And I'm going to leave this run just long enough that you should be able to hear the stone when it makes contact with the blade. It will then, we'll turn off the video and we'll come back when we hear the stone is no longer being cut, which will mean it's being cut in half, and then we'll open it up and we'll see what we have. You never know what you get inside. You might have a geode, you might have an agate, you might have nothing interesting. So this is going to be exciting to see what's in, and that's the fun of cutting open nodules and finding geodes. Sometimes there's amethyst, sometimes there's smoky quartz, beautiful blue agate, and sometimes just a grayish agate quartz. Okay. The saw has now finished its work, and now the excitement, waiting to see what you find that comes out cool or doesn't, as the case may be. So we're going to shut off the saw. We're going to wait for it to stop, and as you can see, I put on my best shirt. It's important when you open up one of these saws that you have on your oldest shirt because it's full of oil. Everything's covered with cutting oil, and it's a mess if you get it on you. So you need an old shirt that you really don't care if you get oil on. So here we go. We're going to open it up, come in here a little bit so we can see the, prop up the cover, and then we bring back the carriage, and that is the inside of the rock. It is not hollow. This is the other piece of the rock, which went right there, and as you can see, it is a blue-gray agate. Try to get a little closer there to the stone, and it's dripping with oil. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to stop the video for a second. I'm going to clean up the rock, get the oil off, and I'm going to show you what the next 2 steps are to polishing the stone. Okay, here is the stone, and this is the next step in the process. I've just cleaned it off with water and soap. You have to make sure all the oil is off of it or you contaminate the wheels. What I'm going to do is there's an edge here where the stone, as the blade cut through, broke off, and I have to grind that off, and I'm going to grind around this edge so it isn't sharp. Right now it's a very sharp edge, and right there's a little raised area. We have to get rid of that before we go on and do any further. If you don't do that, you will rip and tear your abrasive belts that we're going to use to grind this. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go around the edge. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing, but here we go. As we start the grinder, we turn on the water, And we're going to go along this edge and just round it so it's not sharp. It's the sharpness that we're worried about, because it'll cut the next belt that we're going to use. So you can perhaps see where I've rounded that edge off right there, gone around it. And now I have to grind this down, and that's done very carefully like this. Okay, stop. The next step is to go from the CabKing and an 80 grit where we did the edges of the rock and took off that little broken edge there, and we're now going to go to the Bullwheel. The Bullwheel is an 80 grit, and it has a series of belts you can take on and take off like this. They just slip on, and you start with 80 and you work your way up to 600. I do 80, 100, 220, 320, and then 600. And at that point, you have a choice of either going to a leather lap that goes on the end of this wheel, or you can go back over to one of the diamond machines. For right now, though, we're going to start and show you how to do it with the 80 grit. This is very aggressive, so we're going to use water, and we're going to take the stone. And the stone, you have to make sure that you're not getting it on those edges with the stone. If you do, it'll spall off and chip and break. So you want to keep it cool with the water so it doesn't spall, and work it up and down like that, and then the opposite way. And you want to make sure that when you get to the edge right here, that's where it gets hot. That's where you want to add more water or back off. You don't want to put too much pressure on either edge. So here we go. It's noisy. I won't be doing much of a narrative. I'm just going to show you the process, how it starts, and then we'll go on to the next grit. Almost finished with this, pretty fast. That's what I like about the Bullwheel. You can see we have one spot there that is a problem. I've got to try to grind that spot out. More water. Don't press too hard. Lots of water. And we're ready to go to the next step. We turn off the Bullwheel. We wait till it stops. And then you take off the belt and put on a 100 grit belt. Okay, I've now gone through with the Bullwheel the different grits up to finally a 600 grit. I've gone through 80, 100, 220, 320, and then 600. At this point, you either stop at the 600, which is sometimes a good idea. They're pretty shiny and look pretty good, or you can go onto this leather lap that goes on the end of a Bullwheel. I would recommend you stay away from it because it's highly dangerous. I don't know if you can see this area here. This is what happens when a rock catches the sharp edge. That's why I took off the edges. Sharp edge catches on this, it'll rip the leather and it will launch the stone through the air and potentially break things or kill people. It's very dangerous. There aren't many stones that I actually polish, but I'm going to show you how it's done. You'll see in a minute this wheel is going to turn this way. So I'm going to keep the edge of it over here. And I don't want to get any of these edges caught in this because it'll dig right in and it'll throw the rock into space. So here we go. Oh, and I might add, you use cerium oxide. You want it not damp, but not dry. So I have water and cerium oxide, so here we go. Do not get this back edge into the wheel or it will take off. So you're only going to do that and then turn it the other way. Always taking advantage of the rotation of the stone, and you don't get any of the sharp edges around the rock against the wheel. And that is how it's done, and we'll now take you to a spot where you can see. Okay, this is the finished stone. I'm moving it, you can see the polish. There are little sagenites, the iron on the top, the round things. There you can see where we cut through one. Down there's another one. And what you have here is a banded agate, or perhaps you could call it a fortification agate based upon the shape. In any event, it's a beautiful blue-gray agate with very good polish on it. And that is the stone we started with, and that's how you do it.